All right, hello. Some people ask me to make a fire guide. I'm not 4G, but doesn't appear like he's making one this season, so it could be useful. If any of you have heard that fire is a complex or hard spec, don't worry. It is not that at all at the current moment. Very easy to learn, to pick up. Hopefully feel kind of intuitive. You get access to some good defensives like Cauterize, and you get to look cool. Get to shoot a bunch of fire. Who doesn't want to burn things down every once in a while, right? Not in real life, of course. But yeah, since this is the start expansion, I figured we'll go quickly over some of the base mechanics for fire, like we typically do. And the main one that you need to be concerned about is Hot Streak. So Hot Streak is when you crit twice in a row, you get to send one of your spells as an instant cast. And that's just a choice between Fire Blast or Flame Strike, which, as you can imagine, is quote-unquote normally like single target versus AOE decision, right? It's a little bit different for fire, but that's what you can think of it as. And this is actually not one buff, this is actually two buffs. So for instance, this is the first crit, it's called a Heat Up, and this is the second crit, and this is called a Hot Streak. And now I can cast my Flame Trick or Power Blast instantly, instead of having a 2.8 second cast time on my Power Blast. So that's pretty strong. And if any of you read the other part of your tooltip, it's always good to read tooltips. This also causes it to do double ignite damage. And ignite, if you've heard anything about Fire Mage, is probably sounding kind of familiar. That's with their mastery, where they just essentially do additional damage over time from their spells. So all your spells just do, X% more damage, essentially, when you have more mastery. But yeah, so that's the base mechanic of fire. Something that's really important to how it flows is there's not a crazy amount of RNG in those crit strikes. Okay, as fire, you actually have a lot of ways to guarantee that your spells crit. Of course, you have the iconic combustion where you have 100% crit chance during it. But aside from that, Fire Blast is a spell that always crits. Phoenix Flames is a spell that always crits. We don't take this talent right now, but if you took this, then Dragon's Breath would be a spell that also always crits. Okay, so there's a lot of ways for you to just see that you got a Heat Up, for instance, and then decide to change it into a Power Blast thing that you can use, and chain that really if you get lucky, right? So I can just send a lot of instant casts doing that, and send a lot of Power Blasts that way. And of course, when you're in combustion, you can just guarantee that every other spell is going to be a Power Blast. The main thing is that as fire, we have a lot of resource generation at the moment for instant cast, and so technically you could just say like Phoenix Flames, Fire Blast, Power Blast, Phoenix Flames, Fire Blast, Power Blast. That's pretty inefficient because you're spending two generators for one of your empowered spells essentially. And so when you're in combustion, that becomes a lot more efficient because it makes your Power Blast also always crit. So then you can just do one Fire Blast for a Power Blast or one Phoenix Flames between each Power Blast. Right? So that's kind of the gist of fire is that. But yeah, how you play right now is going to be a lot of spamming instant cast. You're not really going to be spamming your fireball that much at all. But anyway, other things to cover when you're looking at fire is it technically has three potential filler spells when you are out of procs and out of cooldowns, and that would be your Fireball, your Flame Strike, and your Scorch. Flame Strike is actually incredibly bad to use as a filler, so you should generally never hard cast Flame Strike. However, Fireball and Scorch is entirely just dependent on your target's health. Okay, you can read the Scorch tooltip, and that's going to tell you exactly why you want to use it. If a target is below 30% HP, it is going to be a guaranteed crit. And in that sense, we don't really want to use Fireball because Fireball is just RNG on whether it crits. And then you can just Scorch and say Phoenix Flames, and you would guarantee get a Power Blast. Additionally, Scorch is castable while moving. Kind of one of the very few spells that actually ends up like that, right? Not very many spells these days are castable while moving, and Scorch is one of them. So when you were in Execute, you could just use Scorch twice and get your free Power Blast. Of course, this guy's in an Execute, so it's not going to crit. That's where Fire's kind of mobility, especially on a fight like Rashnan, comes into play, where other specs like Arcane that have much less frequent casting while moving, can have a bit of struggles. So yeah. All right. We've now talked about kind of the base differences in Fire's kit. Let's take a look at its priority and some of the effects it has in its talent tree. Okay, so we're gonna look at its priority first. We're gonna start with Combust. I think that's easier. In Combust, everything crits. So if you Pyroblast, for instance, it's gonna give you Heat Up, and then you would cast another spell to get it back to a hot streak, and then you would Pyroblast, and then you would cast another spell, and then you would Pyroblast, and then you would cast another spell, and then you would Pyroblast, and you would cast another spell, right? It's very simple. You have your 3 lines in Combust, and I can showcase it for you, but let's talk really quick about entering Combustion, and this is very important. It's very important that when you enter Combustion, you have a precast, and what that means is you Fireball or you Scorch, and you can Fireblast during this, you cannot, but you want to do that and then activate Combust generally and say like the last 0.4 seconds of it. That's actually what this red line is it when you should combust essentially from 4G. But yeah, the closer you do this to into the cast, the better usually. But just to be safe, you can do it like 0.4, 0.5 seconds before it. Just so you know, Fire's spells aside from Phoenix Flames are all going to be calculated when you finish casting them. So for instance, I cannot say finish my Fireball cast and then combust and then like Fireblast, Pyroblast or something. You would not want to do that. Your Fireball would not be guaranteed to crit. So it's very important that you would finish your you would cast combust during your initial precast. So the reason we do this is obviously because if you're casting a spell before you enter combust, essentially, then it's going to fly towards the target, and it's going to give you a heating up when it hits the target because you're in combust now, and because that you just don't need to generate one more heating up, right? So yeah, that's normally how we do it. And I'll give you some showcases of this once we get into the gameplay rotation and everything. But we're just gonna go through a quick combustion priority, right? Where it's just alternating between essentially Pyroblast and Fireblast, or Pyroblast and Phoenix Flames, or Pyroblast and Scorch if you run out of stuff. Okay. One of the things to note is if you do enter combust without a heating up, right? That's not gonna happen. So to get a heating up before I enter combustion, I'm just gonna Phoenix Flames, and I Fireball, Fireblast, Combust, Pyroblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Phoenix Flames, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Phoenix Flames, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Phoenix Flames, Pyroblast, Pyroblast, and then I use Pyroblast here. If any of you noticed, I actually did press Fireblast twice at one point during there. That was pretty bad. Munched the heat up essentially. You have to be a little careful with spamming buttons when you have off GCD buttons. But yeah, that's how you do combustion, right? That's not very hard. I just did 1 million damage, 1 million DPS, and all I did was alternate between essentially 2 or 3 buttons. So yeah, that's your single turret. That's also your AOE. I mean, AOE, depending on your talents, you're either going to be doing Pyroblast or you're going to be doing Flame Strike, and we'll cover that in a bit. But Flame Strike also generates a heat up when you have certain talents, or I think by default now. So nothing really changes. Pretty simple. For your filler, when you're outside of combust, it's still not crazy complex. You're just gonna use your Pyroblast or Flame Strike with Hot Streak, and then there's this other buff called Hyperthermia, where when you're not in combustion, essentially you just have a chance to get a buff that makes all your Pyroblasts or Flame Strikes instant cast and guaranteed crits for a while. So you just spam those depending on what you should be doing at that target count. So, bit of a feels good buff. You also get this when combustion ends. If you're, coming from Arcane, this is when Arcane can spam all its Arcane barrages after Surge ends. Fire can just gets this Hyperthermia buff, which is pretty nice. So, and I believe they're increasing the duration of it in 11.5, or 0.0.5, which will feel pretty nice because right now it feels very short for Fire. A lot of times, unless you proc the actual one, which we have talented into. So. You're shifting power if you're not combust. When you're in shifting power, you get like about 1.8 Fire Blast back. I mean, it's dependent actually on your haste, how many Fire Blast charges you get back. So you want to use Fire Blast at least once during your shifting power because it's cast while casting, so you don't overcap on it. But otherwise, Fire Blast is going to be your preferred manner of converting your heating up into a hot streak so that you can combust, or not combust, sorry, Fire Blast. Otherwise, you can Phoenix Flames, and then your last priority is going to be Fireball or Scorch as a filler to try and fish for heating up, essentially. So it's a little more convoluted than this would make it look, right? Because essentially with this, what it would have you do is like spam Phoenix Flames till you had 0 Phoenix Flames and stuff, and spam Fire Blast till you had 0 Fire Blast, which you don't generally want to do. Normally when you get low on resources, for instance, if I just Phoenix Flames Fire Blast, then Phoenix Flames Fire Blast, and then Phoenix Flames Fire Blast, and then Phoenix Flames Fire Blast, here, I just Fireball, Fire Blast, Pyro, and then Fireball. But normally you don't want to get to this point. You don't want to have, nothing of both. So you would stop when you have like one Phoenix Flame charge and just Fireball and like convert your heating ups like this, right? But yeah, so Phoenix Flames, and then here I had Fireball, Fire Blast, Pyro Blast. Just because, while I could spam a bunch of instants there, it's just going to leave me all out of instants and ways to convert my heating up into a hot streak. And then you're also going to, get a random time null you can combust and have no procs to use it, or get to your actual combust and have no procs. So you definitely don't want to be spending all the way to 0 every possible chance you can get. Normally you kind of want to, have a little bit of resource guarding and hold it for a second. But yeah, we have a lot of ways, particularly for both Phoenix Flames and Fire Blast, to get charges back. So especially in AOE, you're really going to be spamming all your instants a lot, but you're still going to want to be throwing some fireballs in there as well. And the main ways that you do that is, one of them is from this talent, where every 25 hits you essentially do to a single target. You get 2 Phoenix Flames refunds, and they also just do big damage, which is nice. Additionally, we have this. Never mind, I guess they changed that talent. It used to be that Ignite had a chance to reduce the cooldown of your Fire Blast. I guess it's now just a flat Fire Blast cooldown reduction. However, for Fire, when you're playing Sunfury, which is the only hero talent you should consider, Frostfire is dead, just like it is for Frost. Every 6 Fire Blasts, or every 6 times you consume Hot Streak, essentially, your Fire Blast is going to get 4 seconds reduced on its cooldown, really. And then we also have our Forset, which has a bug tooltip. It says refunding 1% of the cooldown of Phoenix Flames. I believe it's 50% of the cooldown of Phoenix Flames. So yeah, you're able to just use a lot of instant cast all the time. But yeah. So let's get into a bit of a single player example rotation. Okay. So we're open with Phoenix Flames. Technically, if you're just looking at your priority, this is what you would do. Is you would open with the Phoenix Flames. So let's say opener. There's going to be a Phoenix Flames, and then you're going to Fireball. If you're doing AOE, you could Scorch, Fireball plus Fire Blast, and then you're going to combust last 0.5 seconds into Fire Blast and Pyro Blast into, Fire Blast essentially. But this is just, your priority continued. If you're wondering why you're able to Pyro Blast twice here, it's because this Phoenix Flames generates a heating up. This Fireball is going to also generate a heating up, and the Fire Blast is also going to generate a heating up. But I did all of these before combust. So what ends up happening is your Phoenix Flames, and also this Fire Blast generates a heating up, obviously. Your Phoenix Flames gives you a heating up. Your Fire Blast also gives you heating up, so now you have Hot Streak, right? So you actually have Hot Streak during this, which is how you're able to do this Fire Blast right here, is because you generate a Hot Streak. This Fire Blast is from your Phoenix Flames and your Fire Blast, and then this next Fire Blast is from your Fireball and the previous Fire Blast. Okay, because Fireball has a travel time, so you're queuing this Pyroblast and consuming it right as you finish your Fireball cast, and so the Pyroblast and Fireball are then traveling at the same time, and then they generate this Pyroblast, and then you go forth. And this is the same thing that you can do with Scorch. This is not possible with Flame Strike, but we might talk about that later. All right, so let's take a look at the single target. Phoenix Flames, Fireball, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Double Pyro, Fireblast Pyro, Fireblast Pyro. I can Phoenix Flames, Pyro, Fireblast Pyro, Phoenix Flames, Pyro, Destroy Scorch. Fun. I thought it was going to still have its Heat Shimmer, but yeah. And then once it ends, I would just spam my spam my Pyroblast for Hyperthermia. I got a random Hyperthermia proc, and just spam them. Then it ends. I would like to use Shifting Power, so my Shifting Power, I have to Fireblast twice to not overcap because I procced it. Hyperthermia, spam Pyroblast. And yeah, and then now I'm almost to combust, so I just Fireball, Pyroblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, Fireblast, Pyroblast, and then I can send some Phoenix Flames if I want. And then I still have a bunch of Fireblast charges, and Phoenix Flames, Pyro, and then we just utilize our Hyperthermia. We got Time Anomaly proc, so we're just gonna keep doing everything. Here I'm kind of low on resources, so we're just gonna Fireball. I'm actually not low because I got Phoenix Flames refunds, but yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of low, so I will Fireball. Pyro, I procced Hyperthermia, so I just spam my Pyroblast. And then I could just Scorch to show you what it looks like, but yeah. Yeah, it's exactly the same as Fireball, it's just a little faster casting. A lot of people prefer to Scorch into Combust when they are doing AoE, just because it gets you in it faster. But yeah, so now I want to Shifting Power. Fireblast once. Fortunately, I crit, which is kind of annoying. I'm trying to make sure I'm minimizing my overcap on Fireblast and everything. Here, I'm going to do Fireball, Fireblast, Combust Pyro. Right. I am offline. That person just typed in my chat, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I didn't really need a switch there. There wasn't really a reason. Do my Hyperthermias. But sometimes a bit awkward there. I should probably change my weak order to show GCDs. But yeah, so I'm just like jumping around doing this. Got a time on proc. Okay. They're shooting power. It's gonna overcap me on Combust, which is probably fine, but you don't really have a consideration for this buff. We didn't even talk about it. Not really worth considering. It's kind of weak right now, so ideally you probably end your Combust with a Pyroblast always, and I'm kind of ending it with Phoenix Flames because I'm not really playing ahead, but yeah. You can ignore this. I should probably get rid of this weak order. It doesn't really matter anymore. But yeah, this is just Fire Mage, right? Just jumping around, having lots of fun. Anyway, that's your single target showcase. That was a good 4 minutes, and I, barely hard casted anything. Yeah, this might change, but essentially, the most recent thing that I've seen about Fire is that you just don't care at all about stacking your improved Scorch, and you can just focus on Pyroblast and Pyroblast. That's from Forgy. If that changes, I'm sure that'll be updated at some point. Yeah, as I'm saying it now, that's not in the Rin guides. The Rin guides will tell you to prioritize Scorch, and it's not necessary at the moment. But you can always ask me in the comment section if it's updated, and I will let you know. But yeah, that's your single target. So, and obviously these are your single target talents. If we're talking about Ignite, if you want to play like Ignite and Mythic Plus, you would change these. You just do that. You get rid of your Ashen Feather and take Master Flame, and then just do a bunch of AoE damage. You could also drop your Heat Shimmer, because it's not very good in AoE, but there's really nothing good to take for it. Yeah, honestly, Ashen Feather might be more single target damage. I don't know. So maybe this might be like what Ignite build evolves into, but not sure at the moment. I would recommend, however, you play Flame Strike in essentially every situation. Ignite in AoE, if you want to play Ignite in Mythic Plus, is literally your single target rotation. That's it. You see AoE packs, you just do your single target rotation. So I'm not really going to cover that, aside from the fact that I just showed you the talents. But yeah, our AoE rotation, even so, is actually still essentially our single target rotation, because we are just replacing Power Blast with Flame Strike. Everything else is the same. Your filler is still going to be Fireball. Even at 10 targets, it's not good to cast Flame Strike, evidently. So yeah, filler Fireball, and you do everything exactly the same, except instead of casting Power Blast, you're casting Flame Strike. Flame Strike, if I was to take it from my bars, has a reticle. I would not recommend attempting to cast Flame Strike with your reticle. That is a very bad time for you, and you would be wasting a lot of duration in your combust just trying to press and target it, right? Because if I do this, and then every time I have to target and cast it, I'm just losing like 0.2, 0.3 seconds or something, as opposed to just having at cursor macro, right? Which, if you want, is going to just look like that. Okay. I prefer having something that shows me my mouse, because I just find it easier to use at cursor macros with that. But if you are against using a targeted spell a lot in your AoE rotation, I would either only play Ignite, and I don't think Ignite is very strong, or I would not play Fire Mage. So, yeah. But that's my opinion, right? You can do whatever you want. Of course, maybe they might give you an option to have it targeted at the person you're casting at, like they did for Shamans, but that is a talent. That is not something you can do with a macro. So yeah. This is going to be what I recommend as your M+ loadout. There's a couple changes you can do here, really, if you want, but this is generally going to be what you should run and consider optimal. One of the things that's noteworthy is while most specs have their bad luck protection for their proc built into their filler, for instance, for Frost, casting Frostbolt and not getting procs increases the chance that you will get procs on your next Frostbolt. For Fire, that's not the case. That's a talent, because for Fire it's critting. So you have a talent where every time your Fireball fails to crit a target, you gain increased crit chance on your next Fireball. This is reset when your Fireball actually crits. We take this in single target. We do not take this in Mythic Plus. So your Fireball is pretty abysmal in Mythic Plus. But luckily, we have so many instances it normally doesn't matter. But yeah, you will feel a little sad if you ever have to cast Fireball in Mythic Plus, because it's a very low chance to crit, and there's no bad luck protection on that. So in terms of the AoE talents we're taking this, where Phoenix Flames this works on your Hot Streak Flame Strikes, which is one of the big reasons we're taking this. It's because it just increases the damage of Flame Strike, because you're always casting Phoenix Flames. We take this, Flame Strike damage just does 25, it's just 25% more damage. That's good. One of the things you should note is, this compared to Flame Patch should be stronger. Generally, damage buffs in WoW are multiplicative, so Flame Strike gain a 15% increased damage. Next week on Tuning Reset, 924, means that this will also be a little stronger of a talent, so it's a pretty good talent. And then this is going to massively contribute to your AoE damage. This is Mark of the Firelord, causes your Flame Strike to apply double ignite. Okay, and this makes Mastery a very good stat for Fire. Mastery is very, very good above one target. At one target, it's okay, but anywhere above one target, and you are just swimming. You want to be swimming in Mastery, really, and haste, of course. But yeah, so Ignite did get pretty mega nerfed by the fact that you need to stack this thing up to actually do good Ignite damage on like a single target, and this is currently bugged, but we don't really need to talk about that. So yeah. As I said, you're just doing your same rotation, but in AoE now, casting Flame Strike. So I would, for instance, Phoenix Flames, Scorch, Fire Blast, Combust, and then just spam Flame Strike with how I was using my spells in single target, essentially. could get a little unlucky on things, so I'm just gonna do one Scorch, but yeah, Hyperthermia comes around, spam this, I'm actually at Fire Blast, don't worry about that. And then we shifting power, Fire Blast during it, Flame Strike, I got Hyperthermia, so I'm gonna do this. We're in our filler, so I ran out of things, so I have to cast Fireball. It feels pretty bad. Yeah, so we can Phoenix Flames, and get into this. Normally, you're supposed to pool some of your resources before you enter Combust. I think you'll find a lot in Mythic Plus, especially people who stream Fire Mythic Plus don't do that. So you can choose to do it or not, but you know, it can be better to just send it, given how fast packs can die sometimes. But yeah, I end up in this pretty bad scenario where I didn't really proc on my Phoenix Flames, or I didn't proc Hypothermia, and so I have to spam Fireball for a while. But if you do want to play SKB, and kind of mimic how we played last expansion, that is, I probably shouldn't have done that because I can't Fire Blast. Good, nice. That is something you can do in Mythic Plus, but anyway, in SKB, there's just like the damage you do, and then normally when you're walking between packs, you have a chance to regen some of your instant cast, or you just get more lucky than I am, and then you're kind of all set to go, right? But yeah, so that's Fire's AOE rotation. Very simple, not too challenging to learn at all. All right, so we covered our single turret, we covered our AOE, and that is absolutely the only things you need to know for the current state of Fire. It doesn't look like things are really changing at all in the 0.5 patch, especially, unless they do any crazy tuning for Fire in the future. This is how you can play all the time if you want to. However, there's an additional option. If you want, even as Sunfury, you can drop Unleash Inferno and take Sun King's Blessing. It's going to be lost in single target, but you do get a little bit of a gain in AoE because it just does big damage flame strikes. So this could be something you see people playing. Also, it's worth mentioning, Sunfury is just a lot better than Frostfire in every situation, kind of similar to Spellslinger compared to Frostfire for Frost. But if you were to play Frostfire, you would play Sun King's Blessing. Okay. And the way you play this is very simple. It's just when it's ready, you hardcast a Fire Blast in single target, and you hardcast a Flame Strike in AoE. Okay. So we'll give you a bit of an example there, but so this stacks up to 10 stacks when you consume a hot streak. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I just this, and then I can hardcast it, Fire Blast, and then it's going to put me back into combustion. One of the things to mention with this, though, is you cannot hardcast a Fire Blast when you are in Hyperthermia, which makes it a little bit awkward, like depending on how your lineups are with the end of your combust, really. But yeah, you can see it's incredibly simple for single turret. You need a weak aura, obviously, telling you your stacks, but you get to max stacks and you just cast it. As you can play in the AOE talent build there. But it's gonna be the same exact thing in AOE, except you're just going to use it on Flame Strike. See, so I get here, I Flame Strike. And you're still chilling. You see, however, I'm like in combustion when I still have my SKB Flame Strike, and that was because getting hyperthermia at the end of your natural combustion but not, however, like if you add SKB duration to it, it doesn't change anything. So. But yeah, so this is supposed to be a couple percent better in AoE, and I'm mainly covering this in case yes, fire becomes kind of meta in N+, and people decide that they want to use SKB. But yeah. One of the things you can do as well is this buff you get from casting Phoenix Flames, where, you know, in AoE essentially just makes your next Flame Strike do more damage. You can use this before you use your SKB Flame Strike, and that can make it do, you know, pretty substantial damage, right? You can see my Flame Strike hit for 1.2 million here. And I can assure you, I don't know if I have AoE ones earlier, but, you know, you can look at the average. The average is like 265k for whatever reason. So, you know, normally your Flame Strike would not hit for 1.2 million, and that's kind of the benefit of this, is that one, you guaranteed to have combustion for every pack, right? You have combust, you have SKB, which feels pretty good. And then two, it just hits like a truck. It's like a freaking truck. So, yeah. In terms of, you know, gearing, I guess we can talk about that a little bit. You want haste, you want some mastery, especially for Melee Plus, and then, you know, Verse and Crit are okay, but you should always sim your gear anyway. In terms of trinkets, Spy Master is obviously really good. You know, Arakara is also really good. So, yeah, but you can just send that stuff. But that's just like prospect wise, there's a lot of overlap currently. You can just play a lot of haste mastery for all the specs, and it's pretty good. Obviously, Frost wants more crit, and then you'll probably encounter that, you know, like Arcane might want more verse, specifically in single target. Yeah, those are gonna be the gearing differences for you. In terms of embellishments, you know, rocking Ascendance and Writhing Armor Band is pretty good for all the specs if you raid in particular. If you don't raid, that's kind of tough, because this and Symbiosis, which are technically our best embellishments, just like fall off in Mythic Plus if your tank's not chain pulling. So I would either opt for Symbiosis, or, yeah, just check and see what the big people are doing in a couple weeks or something. Symbiosis is fine, you know, but embellishments really aren't that big of a deal this expansion either, so it's not too bad. But yeah, especially if you focus on raiding, you know, Symbiosis if you want a little bit better frame plus, and Ascendance if you're kind of, you know, whatever about it, or like the effect. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't think I'm missing anything. You know, if you want to find any weak warriors, you can just head over to Wago and search some up. There's a bunch of SKB ones there. You can always download my weak warriors package if you want my fire weak warriors or anything. I don't think there's any critical ones with the current design of fire, because obviously we're not playing SKB, generally speaking. It's not recommended to. And there's nothing else you really have to track, so yeah. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions. See ya.